Like I said, I'm the only person out here today, so we're being safe and practicing social distancing. So I hope all of you guys are too. As I said, my name is Carlin Stewart. I am the instructional coordinator here at Los Luceros Historic Site. And I just want to thank PEEC so much for inviting me out to talk with you guys. So Los Luceros Historic Site is located in Alcalde, New Mexico. And that is about a 40-minute drive from Los Alamos. So when we are open again and it is safe, I hope that you all can take a trip out here because it is very beautiful. And I'm going to turn my screen so you can see some of the land out here. So I am coming at you live from the barn area, and we have a storm rolling in. It's very beautiful. And, you know, since this is virtual, I just kind of wanted to, you know, make this as personable as possible. I want to share with you the sights, the sounds, the smells. And as for smells, it's pretty smelly out here. You got to imagine all of these farm animals, but we love them anyway. And so here to say hello, we have our baby lambs to the right here who wants a close up. This is Natia. And this is Biscochito. And these guys their names were actually chosen on an Instagram contest that we did. So that's pretty fun. All right. So let's turn the camera back around so you can see me. Hi again. All right. So I just wanted to start off by saying when we are open again, I am really hoping to get members of the community out here, local people in the Alcalde area, Española, and to talk to you guys and talk to our visitors, sheep herders and weavers, because, oh, do you hear that? That is our donkey, Josefina. I don't know if you could hear her. She likes attention, and she gets really upset when she doesn't get attention. But anyway, so I want to have, you know, sheep herders and people that have been doing this for generations out here and giving this talk, because it really is their history and their stories. So I'm going to do my best to tell you a little bit about the history of the livestock here, how they got here, and why we think they are such an essential part of Los Luceros Historic Site. If you have never, oh yeah, so you wanted to chime in. If you have never been here, Los Luceros is 148 acres of orchards, farmland. We have lots of space for these animals to graze, but we also have a 17th century Spanish hacienda. We have a church or capilla here, and trails through the bosque that you can walk around the river. So it's quite a beautiful place to be. So again, once we open, I hope that you can come visit us. But so for now, let's talk about the introduction of livestock in New Mexico. Now, when I was researching this, I did not expect this to be such a fascinating story with so many twists and turns. But there's a lot to it, so I'll try and break it down for you and keep it interesting. And of course, say hello to all the animals as we go through this. Hi, buddy. Hello. So these guys actually just got sheared. So normally they're a lot fluffier. And you can see that we have sheep in here that are called churro sheep. And then we have some goats mixed in. And our babies came and said hello earlier. And I'll try and find, we have one of the churro sheep that actually has 4 horns, which is, there he is, which is a really distinguishing factor about these guys, is they can grow up to 4 horns, which is pretty neat. Here he is. All right. So, in New Mexico, the introduction of domestic animals by the soldiers, the colonists, and the Franciscan missionaries really changed New Mexico profoundly. Think about all of the things that we associate with livestock, right? So it's not just wool, it's not, hi, hello. See, I'm gonna get distracted by these guys coming up to say hello. Hi. So it's not just wool. It's not just, oh, look how cute they are. They really had a part in a lot of things, right? So human transportation, so mules and donkeys and horses, right? Human transportation, hauling heavy payloads. So now people could trade and sell a lot more items than they used to be able to. Tilling the fields is a really big thing. Turning wheel for grinding grain. And it is also, important to say that before livestock got here, there wasn't necessarily a lack, right? Because think about some of the archaeological sites that you've been to, Chaco Canyon, Bandelier, think about the Hohokam canals in southern Arizona, right? All of these intricate, massive systems, integrated systems. There's a lot of mosquitoes out here, let me tell you. Yeah. And so these integrated systems were all created without the use of mules and donkeys to help, make things faster or help ease the weight. And so that's something really important to consider, is like, that's pretty incredible within itself, right? That all of these things were done before the introduction of these animals. And, it is also not to say that all of the things these animals brought were necessarily good. So we have, they carry infectious diseases. Eventually, this led to really big overgrazing. So, it's funny because back in the 1500s, a Spanish author actually wrote instructions for taking care of sheep. And that included changing them from one field to another, and cycling through these fields so that they don't eat one field all the way. Because when they eat, they will eat all the way down to the ground. And that's not great, because then you have no more grass for them to eat, and then it kind of ruins the land. And so we knew that, the Spanish knew that when they came over here. But when the sheep really caught on as an economy, those rules weren't necessarily paid attention to. So like I said, it led to a lot of overgrazing, and overgrazing, can lead to erosion. So, these guys are stepping on the banks to get some water, and then the banks falls in, and there we have some erosion and, destruction of our riparian areas, which is the area around the river. And that led to lowered water tables and really transformed the land of New Mexico from this grassy area into this shrubby, dry land, that we have an influx of juniper and cholla that were never there. So it's important to kind of balance all these things that these sheep brought us, because it brought a lot of things. It helped a lot of people. A lot of cultures really value these sheep. And the other side, the environmental side, is that they are damaging when let to roam. So we have to really balance that. So the sheep arrived here. Some arrived in America with Christopher Columbus. I've got a little guy here saying hello. You want to help me? With Christopher Columbus in 1492. But in New Mexico, they really came with the Oñate expedition. So that was in 1598. And this group was specifically, let's get some animals in the picture. There we go. This group was specifically here to colonize. So there had been Europeans here before, but this group was the first group that's like coming up here to colonize. Obviously hello. Yeah, you're helping. Obviously, this was really contentious, lots of conflict. And, a lot of people were already here. People were already here, established with their social and cultural customs and their resources. And so when the Oñate expedition came up here, they used up a lot of the resources that were being used by people that were already here. And I just want you guys to picture this, right? So to me, this seems like a lot of animals in one space, because we confine them to this area just for this talk. Usually they're out grazing. But fun fact, they've actually been sleeping together in the barn, like all of them, the whole herd. It's pretty funny. But when Oñate brought up these animals, there were 7,000 heads of livestock. 7,000, and that included 3,400 sheep. Now, I'm pretty used to the smell out here now with these guys. Oh, he's saying hello. Hi. Yeah. Yep, see, there's that smell again. So I'm pretty used to the smell out here, but 7,000 of these. So there's actually a lot of stories that before you could see Onyate's crew coming up, you could smell them. And I imagine that that would be pretty smelly. So just take that with you and how stinky that would be. You know, many of the animals did die on the journey. It is hot, it is long. Think about this. I mean, these animals had to come from Spain to the Caribbean to inland Mexico, up the Camino Real, and all the way up to northern New Mexico with Juan de Oñate, right? Like, that's a big journey. So a lot of these guys didn't necessarily make it, and, you know, were eaten on the journey. You had to feed your soldiers too, right? They had to eat somehow. So we actually don't know how many animals made it to their final destination. And their final destination actually was Okeowinge. So that is a pretty neat part of history, that we are like right next to where the livestock industry in the United States really started. And fun fact about Los Luceros is actually one of the first places where alfalfa was being grown, like ever in the United States, which is bananas to me. So that's pretty cool. So let's see. Yeah, Oñate was credited with launching the livestock industry in the Southwest. But it didn't start too well. So, you know, it's kind of hard to adapt to new landscape. There's new people, there's all this stuff going on. And so a lot of the livestock was not really making it at the time. But a fun fact about history is that even though the livestock was not making it, the Spanish never truly switched over to the foods being used by the indigenous people. So, foods like elk and deer were being hunted, and small game such as rabbits and fish, because we're at the confluence of two rivers right here. None of that was really found in the archaeological record of the Spanish sites in the 17th century, which is pretty interesting, because you would expect if your food is not, doing so well, you'd kind of switch over and just eat whatever's available. But apparently that's not the case, which is fascinating. So we talked about the good things and the bad things that these guys brought. But let's talk about sheep specifically. And to do that, I will get some treats for these babies so they can come closer. So I'm going to walk us into the barn. These guys tend to get up and move when I get in here, so don't be alarmed. Hello. So I'm getting them some sweet feed here. This is a treat that they really enjoy. And the two babies, Biscochito and Natia, were actually, here babies, come here, babies, whoop, here you go, might have some other visitors here. So these babies were actually bottle fed by us because their mothers actually abandoned them at birth. And so in the nice cold winter mornings, in the middle of the night, we had to bottle feed these babies. Mr. Goat, you need to get out of here. Here you go. Come here, sweet Natia. Come here. There you go. Woo! Livestock are taking over. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. So we baby fed these babies, bottle fed these babies. And so they are really accustomed to people, which is pretty great. So if you ever come to visit us, they can be pet. And these were the two sheep that we were actually going to bring to PEEC if this was in person, back before everything closed down. Now these guys are like hassling me for some sweet feed. Hello. Yes, hello. Whoa, he's really saying hi. So anyway, sheep. Hi, there's no more, you guys. Oh, here's a really good look at this guy with 4 horns. Yeah, so he's pretty cool, and that's such a distinguishing factor about these churro sheep. All right, back to me so you can stop seeing me getting hassled here. There we go. So you can hear these funny noises that all these guys are making, which sound pretty terrifying. The first time I heard it, I was like, what animal is that? But it's just our nice little sheep here making that noise. So that's fun. So sheep were originally domesticated in the Fertile Crescent, which is in the Middle East. And the cool thing about sheep is their stomachs can actually digest cellulose in grass. And so they really can eat a lot of the native grasses that they encountered on their journey here. And it makes sense why Spain brought sheep over to the New World, because sheep herding was a principal pastoral occupation in Spain since medieval times. So people have been sheep herding over there for a really, really long time. And the Iberians actually really liked mutton. So mutton is the meat that comes from sheep. So a really great story that came from researching this is there's actually two types of sheep in Spain, or there was when all of this was happening, when they were coming over. There's the merino sheep, and the merino sheep is well known for its fluffy white fleece, just really beautiful, very soft. And these sheep were highly valued. And they were so valued to the point that there was actually a guild called the Mesta that forbade them from being exported out of the country. So these sheep were so renowned and so precious that they could not leave the country. Instead, what Christopher Columbus and later Oñate brought over is the churro sheep, which is what we have here. So all these guys are Navajo churro sheep, originally brought up with Oñate. And what's really funny about this is they thought that they were just kind of getting rid of the lowly sheep, like, okay, get them out of here. We have too many. We just want merinos. But they're actually the perfect species for the Southwest. So they can thrive in arid environments. They thrive on sparse grasses. So they really, like I said, can eat whatever is out there. They can withstand drought a lot better than cattle. So obviously in the Southwest, drought is a huge problem, and they could actually really do well in these conditions. Let's say hello again. Hi. Hello. This one has really been liking to chew on my shirt, so hopefully that doesn't happen. And also I have my notes here, and a nice little piece was chomped off. So animals are fun. They are really great, and you never know what to expect, which is really a good point. So if you do come visit us, make sure that we are here and that we, are here to introduce you to the animals. You don't just come in, right? And that's, to be said for anywhere, and especially, hi, see, they take nibbles, especially wild animals. You want to give them your social distance respect too. But anyway, so the churro sheep, apparently, with all of these other things, also are pretty tasty, I've heard. So I guess their mutton is actually better than the prized merino breed. And then one other thing that makes them perfect for the Southwest is their wool is really kind of thick and straight. Let me get a piece here. So they were all just sheared. Here we go. So it's really coarse. It's not particularly soft, and it's long and stringy. And, while this wasn't prized in Spain, it actually was a really great material that transferred easily to indigenous methods of weaving. So the hand weaving, or hand spinning and weaving used by the people here actually was they were able to adopt this wool. Oh, he just came right through my legs. Hello. It was really easy for them to adopt into these methods. And not only that, this wool really absorbs pigments very well. And so it was really just the perfect material to be introduced here. And so when the sheep came here and were really adopted into the systems here, it turns out, oh yeah, you can see where he just nudged me, but that's okay. It doesn't actually hurt. Let's see. So the Spanish and the indigenous people were actually more inclined to raise sheep in New Mexico than cattle. They're a lot easier. They provide a lot more. So that's pretty interesting. And then with the sheep came the goats, which are, I think they all retired back to the barn. Let's see here. So with sheep came the goats as well. And a funny thing about goats is they weren't separated from sheep in any of the counts of like what was brought over. We know that about 1,000 were brought to San Gabriel and primarily used for milk. But really, when they're taking census of these animals, they're clumped in with lambs. For some reason. And I find that interesting because in archaeology, we have a subsect called zooarchaeology. And zooarchaeology looks at the bones of animals in like the context of archaeological sites, like human use of these animals. And their bones are so similar that we typically just call them sheep goat. Like it's a sheep goat. There's only very specific bones that can be used to distinguish between these species. So I thought it was pretty funny that back then they were all just referred to as like ganado menor, like just all together, small animals. Yep, ganado menor. So when the sheep came and the Spanish came, obviously it wasn't all peaceful. A lot of conflict was, these guys' livestock really caused a lot of conflict because if you think about what I told you earlier, how sheep have to move from one field to the next, that requires a lot of land. And so there was a lot of land disputes. There was a lot of raiding that happened over livestock. And so they're a pretty big source of contention as well. So one interesting thing along those lines is the Pueblo Revolt that occurred in 1680 in New Mexico. One of, the whole premise of that was really to get rid of any vestiges of Hispanic culture from the indigenous culture, like just, eliminate it. But livestock were not included in that. So people really realized the value of these guys. And a lot of indigenous people acquired the animals through the Pueblo Revolt. So they were that special that they weren't even like part of that elimination. So when Diego de Vargas came back up later, he had 900 heads of livestock. But then the real kahuna, 2 years later, 3,300 sheep, 2,200 goats, and 900 cattle were all driven north. And so you can imagine that reproducing and herding sheep was a principal economic pursuit among colonists south of Santa Fe and the Rio Bajo. And a weaving industry began in Albuquerque. So it really thrived here as an economic pursuit. And I just want to take a second and give you guys some bananas numbers. So in 1850, there were 377,000 sheep. Okay, so 377,000. In 1880, a mere 30 years, just 3 decades later, there were 3.9 million sheep. What? Like, that is incomprehensible to me. Like, that is crazy. And so that was actually the highest number of sheep to ever be in New Mexico was in 1880, 3.9 million. Think about how much land that took. Again, the smell. But again, it is such an important economic driver here. And so during this time, the governor of New Mexico to the Secretary of the Interior said, "The outlook for the sheep business, the greatest of our territorial industries, was never brighter than it is in present time." But then, as all things do, what goes up must come down. So in the 1900s, there was severe drought. And there was so much drought that the Rio Grande actually stopped flowing, which to me is pretty crazy. And after the drought, there was months and months of flooding. And get this, in 1900, Albuquerque reported a third of an inch of rain during their summer rainy season. Like a third of an inch of rain. I come from Tucson, Arizona, in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, and even that is like crazy, not enough of water. So you imagine with like a lack of water and drought and flooding and all this stuff taking place, there was a 40% loss in sheep. Not to mention all the other gross things that were happening, like scabies and foot rot and stomach worms and head grubs and blah, all that gross stuff. Luckily, these guys here are super healthy and they're doing well. Yeah. So don't have any of that here, which is great. They did just get their shot, so they're doing good. And they just got sheared, which is great. But anyway, so all this stuff was happening in the early 1900s, which is not great. And on top of all of that, we have coyotes. And, you know, coyotes were a big problem then, and I am not going to lie to you, they're a big problem now. But coyotes are a part of the natural ecosystem here. They were here, and we have to deal with them. But apparently, you know, with the livestock and people really caring about these sheep and making money, making their livelihoods on these sheep, people would actually hunt coyotes via aircraft, which to me is crazy. So all of this going on, there's going to be some problems with the range conditions. So like things that the sheep actually couldn't eat, like snakeweed and all that, were taking over. They're invasive, and if they can't eat it, that helps no one. And so Theodore Roosevelt came along and promoted, you know, a sense of conservation and understanding that our environment needs to be taken care of, so for future generations. So during his presidency, 1901 to 1909, there was a huge push for conservation. And that kind of brings us up to modern day. You know, we have the rise of horse racing, of dude ranching. And so in this area, there was San Gabriel Dude Ranch. And dude ranches really kind of catered to the wealthy East Coast people that kind of wanted to come and play cowboy for a while. While work on the farm was really still going on behind the scenes. So all of this happening was still happening, but people also got to enjoy and kind of get the farm life experience. So today in New Mexico, modern day, the focus is primarily on cattle. 98% of all livestock sales in New Mexico are from cattle or the milk that they produce. There is a decline in sheep numbers, and 85% of sheep is really used for their wool. They're raised for their wool. And then the sad thing about churro sheep, which now I'm like super attached to them because these guys, you know, we fed from birth, and so they're like my little babies here. There were almost no more churro sheep left in New Mexico. And so, in the 70s, a bunch of different groups had to band together to save this species. And as you can tell, they play such an important role in the history of New Mexico. So it's really good that these 400 breeding pairs that were, or I guess 400 animals total that were breeding, were reproduced so that we have more in the state. And it is officially called, they have the name to Navajo churro because they are such an important part of the Navajo Diné culture. And so, again, it's all about that balance. We got the super awesome historic cultural importance of these guys, and the fact that they possibly did the most amount of damage to the landscape. They graze grasses down to nubbins, and so that land has to be like completely altered to reproduce again, to produce more grass. And you know, their hooves are pretty damaging. Let's see if I can get a hook close up on their hooves. Hi, just looking at your feet. Hello. Yeah, you self-conscious of your feet? There we go. So they're pretty damaging to the landscape. So again, it's all about that balance. And so since we brought it up to modern day, I just want to leave you guys with some references. We have New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum, and that's in Los Cruces. Fort Sumner Historic Site also has churro sheep on site. New Mexico Fiber Arts in Española and Santa Fe is a really good resource. Tierra Wools in Los Ojos, New Mexico, and Chimayo Weavers. And so I know there's probably so many more resources and a lot of different families that have been raising sheep. So I encourage you to, you know, get out there and learn about it. And, you know, I know that, for instance, New Mexico Fiber Arts has this really cool program that you can drop in and like use the materials, use a, learn how to weave and all that. So there's a lot of resources at your disposal. And truth is I'm still learning. I'm a city girl from Tucson, Arizona. I've never, you know, lived on a farm before this. So I'm still learning and getting used to these guys. So we really hope that as soon as that we are open, that you're able to come out and visit and say hello. And that's all for me, unless you guys got questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carly. That was great. If anyone has questions, you can find the chat box, excuse my dog, down at the bottom of your screen, and you can type them in there and I will share them.
Hi. Hello. Hello.
Carly, what does it feel like when they nuzzle your neck?
So since they were, really raised by us, they're super gentle. It's really soft and tickly, and, just kind of makes me feel loved. Like I said, I have a little farm of my own, so it just feels like, just like my dogs, less licking, I guess. And they were really cute when they were babies because they didn't have teeth, so they would just kind of numb your fingers, thinking that it was a bottle. It was pretty cute. Oh, don't eat that paper.
That's great. Somebody wants to know when they can come visit.
Yes, great question. So we are in Los Luceros Historic Site is part of the Historic Site System, which is a state-run institution. So for us, it is all up to the governor. So when the governor says that it is safe and we can put forth our, safety precautions and, all of our PPE and stuff, then we were able to open. I would say that it wouldn't be too much longer given that a lot of the state parks are already open. So we still look forward to having people back. We miss people.
That's great. Somebody else wants to know if you have a favorite.
Ooh, favorite. Oh my gosh. And I didn't even get to show you guys the chicks. So let's go say hello and see if there's any chicks available to say hi to. Because we also have chicks, roosters, and chickens here. Oh, it's a little dark. Let's see. Okay, there they are. So I can't zoom in, it looks like. And I don't want to get too close because you don't want to get too close to mother chickens. But there you go. You got some babies. You see them?
Yeah, we can see one. Oh yeah, we can see the babies.
There's lots of them. Hi. Okay. So the chicks are pretty cute. But as for my favorite, Natia and Biscochito definitely have my heart because, we weren't sure if they were going to make it. They needed a lot of love and a lot of attention. And at first, when they were babies, Natia, who is the smallest one over here, was the gentlest and the kindest, and just very sweet. And then Biscochito, whenever we were feeding Natia, would butt in and ram his head and demand to get the bottle. And so I kind of thought that he was going to be a bit of a jerk. But turns out that when they grew up, or as they're growing up, they're both extremely sweet. And Biscochito, honestly, has kind of become my favorite, but don't tell Natia here.
That's great. Somebody asks, are the churros raised in any other parts of the U.S.?
Oh, great question. I would imagine so, because they weren't just brought into New Mexico. Like I said, Columbus also brought them over in the 1400s. But I'll have to look that up and get back to you. I'm not sure. But there's a lot of them here. I would guess Arizona as well. And the Navajo reservation has a lot of them too. They're such an integral part of that culture.
Cool, thank you. All right, someone says, are the four-horned churro sheep the same species as the two-horned?
Yes, isn't that interesting? So these guys are all the sheep we have here are the same species, which is fascinating because you can see, you can't see because it's still in my face. You can see some of them don't have horns at all. Some of them have one horn with one wonky guy in the air. This guy has curly horns. Yeah. And then of course you see the one with the four horns right there. So they are all the same species, which is so fascinating. And actually this guy does have more than one. He has one outside, one inside, one up, and one on the right side of his face. So he also has four. So it's really just kind of all about genetics and how their horns grow.
That's really interesting. Someone asked if you could show the horns up close. I don't know how close you want to get to those horns.
Yeah, let's see. You of course want to be careful. You don't want to spook anybody, but you have this guy and he's making his escape. And sometimes they, they have little conflicts between them, so they will let each other know who's boss. But they're not letting me get too close. But we can always send you guys pictures too, or post on the website or blog or something so you can see them up close. And then these guys have little bitty horns. And their horns actually won't get any bigger because of a certain process that male sheep have to go through. So their little horns will always be this small. We can get close to some goat horns. Here you go. Hi, buddy. Any more questions?
I think that is all the questions. Does anyone else have a question you want to type in the chat there?
Hi.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're all so much. Carly, thank you. This was awesome. I'm sorry that we didn't get to have lambs come visit, but it was so much fun to see all the animals.
I had so much fun. Thank you. And everybody who joined, it was so much fun. And I hope I get to do this in person soon.
Yeah. Wait, there are some last minute questions coming in. Let's see.
Bring them on.
Do you have any bighorn sheep?
Bighorn sheep. So we don't in this area, I don't think. And funny enough, bighorn sheep did come up in my research because when these guys were introduced, it actually limited a lot of the resources that the native bighorn sheep used. So they were driven away for a really long time and reduced in numbers because these sheep came in. But I can definitely understand that question because some of them have that like curled look of a bighorn sheep. But I don't know of any in this particular area. Of course, if you go further up towards Taos Gorge, there's a ton of them, right? That was a great question. And especially because we do have river access at the site. So the river is here, but we don't have too much of that like rocky, cliffy slopes that they enjoy. So, but man, if I saw one here, I would like freak out. I think they're so cool.
That's great. Someone wanted to know if they lose their horns each year.
Ooh, they don't. I don't think they do. I think they grow pretty continuously. That is something that I'm going to have to look up because I am not sure, but they don't lose them because if they did, I would definitely have some and I'd keep them for educational purposes because they're super cool. But yeah, I think they're like attached and don't fall off.
All right, we have a lot of people just saying thank you. This was super interesting. We have people asking which are the youngest and which are the oldest sheep.
Ooh, yeah, great question. So of course our youngest are the Biscochito and Natia, and then we have some other babies. Sorry, you guys always see my fingers when I'm doing this. So the little brown one there and the one behind him are also part of this year's batch of babies, basically. And funny thing is, these babies weren't exactly part of our plan for the site. It happened and we're happy to have them and they're so great. So we're thankful for them. But those guys are definitely the youngest. They were just born this season. There were some born in December, which as you might imagine is not a great time to be having babies because it's full of snow. And I'm going to move away from this guy because he is peeing right next to me. Farm animals, they have no manners. So, you can imagine December is not a good time to have babies. And like I said, we had to bottle feed these ones in the middle of the night. Ethan Ortega, the supervisor here, he had to set an alarm and we had to feed them every 3 hours or I think it was 3 or 4 hours, which is, pretty labor intensive. Anyway, so those are the youngest. And then, the oldest, really kind of like any of these guys here, if I can do this correctly, come on, there we go. Oh, you can hear the donkey in the background again. But yeah, so any of these guys are among the oldest.
Wow, and Carly, someone asked if you live at the farm, which I think we answered in the introduction, but maybe you could talk about how much time you have to spend there. Are you the only one taking care of these animals?
Sure. So yeah, I am lucky enough to live at Los Luceros Historic Site. And so I live here, and then Ethan lives here as well. He is the manager. And so right now, before before COVID and stuff were happening, we were almost at our full capacity of employees here. But then COVID happened, hiring, everything kind of went out the window. And so it is me, him, and then our ranger, Rebecca. And so we manage this property together, and we're all learning how to, how to prune the apple trees, and how to collect the hay, and how to take care of the animals. So yeah, it's a really it's a hard job, but we are so happy. We love it. We love the animals. We love the land. So we're super thankful to be here. But yeah, so as for time, these guys don't require too much work. Of course, you want to keep an eye on them. Turns out that if a sheep falls down, and sometimes they can't get back up, and really bad things happen, which I won't go into on a family friendly thing. But anyway, they can't get up, and then they pass away, and it's not good. And so you have to keep an eye on that. And if they do fall over, you just have to tip them back up again, and they're fine. So we just want to make sure none of that is happening. And we have to make sure they get their nutrients, but really they graze out in the fields. And as long as we're, rotating those fields, as I talked about earlier, they kind of take care of themselves. The donkey here is meant as a protector from coyotes and stuff like that. And so hopefully over the next couple of years, we'll get some more donkeys to help with that. But it's not too much work, and we love it. So.
That's great. Somebody wanted to know what you're going to do with the wool after you shear it.
Okay, great question. So normally it is my intention to keep the wool, clean it, process it, and use it for demonstrations, and then have weavers come on site and use the wool from our sheep in those activities, in those demonstrations. This year, because it was getting so late in the season and they're getting hot, we just had to shear them, and we unfortunately had to get rid of the wool. There's ticks out here. We're in the country, you guys. And so we're going to keep some of it so we can use it as a tactile process eventually. Who knows how tactile things are going to change with COVID, but normally it is our intention to use it on site, and then also donate it to places in the local area.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Carly. This was super interesting and super fun to be there in the barnyard with you and all the critters. Hi, you too. Carly, please give all the guys a little pet from us. We'll see them when you open. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.